Welcome to the Sunday morning session. Our first speaker today is Harvey Fiala. He's been part of the family now for quite some time. I met him in 2004. Have been very thankful to know him. He's put together one DVD in particular, his 2005 lecture at the conference. If you have a little extra to put into to invest in DVDs, definitely get that one. He talked about measurement, and it is a very, very powerful piece and really helps a lot of people. It says he started experimenting with gravity at age of 8 in his father's basement. He ended up getting a master's degree in electrical engineering from the California Institute of Technology. He's been working in this field for quite a super long time and just really knows his stuff. And let's all welcome Harvey Fiala.
I'm live. So it doesn't matter where I stand then. Okay. Good morning. As he mentioned, my name is Harvey Fiala. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. I have 12 slides that I'm going to go through quickly. Then there's a short video that I'm going to go through quickly. Then there's a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to go through quickly. And then I'm going to go through the 12 slides toward the end slowly and elaborating on each one. Then I'll go through the video and we'll repeat that several times, and I'll elaborate on different parts of the video. And then at the end, we have a device here which actually works. It's an inertial propulsion for providing horizontal motion. I call it HMT IPD, horizontal motion by mass transfer. IPD is inertial propulsion device. And it's really an honor to be here at this conference. It's a privilege and an honor, and I appreciate it. And I have a lot of health issues with myself, actually. But when I come to this conference, I feel energized. I feel much better, and I can walk better, which is amazing. And it's so full of, I'll say, positivity and different health cures and so forth. So I just feel a lot better. And by the way, I did the life something on a table out there. He put a patch on I have a bad hip. He put a patch on front of my belt and on the back of my belt, and I start walking a lot better now, so I don't have my big heavy belt on today, which is amazing. So those things really work. And I might mention that I got this master's degree from the California Institute of Technology. So I had 6 years of college, and not once that I can recall did a book or a professor ever mention the name Tesla. Now, figure that out, huh? Why is it like that? That's sad. And there's something called the Gravity Research Foundation. They used to be in New Hampshire, New Boston, New Hampshire, something like that. And they have an annual contest. Right now it's $5,000 for first place, but their goal was to start out with a way to control gravity, an essay. And okay, thank you. And it turns out that this device is the very, very first approach that controls gravity. Gravity is a downward force, and this converts to a sideways motion, which is not supposed to be possible according to all the physicists. And it's also supposed to be impossible to convert rotary motion to unidirectional linear motion. Well, this does that also. And I want to mention that, well, there's over 50 different patents that claim to move and produce a force. And I've studied them all, and they do not work. They cannot work. And the first one that received any attention was the Dean drive. It came out in 1960. It was published in Astounding Science Fiction, and it was amazing, a great story. And it was so convincing that it really worked. And I ordered a copy of that patent, and I studied it. And actually, I was just graduated from Caltech, and Dr. Richard Feynman, the Nobel laureate, and to me, he's the best instructor on the planet, or was. Now he's deceased. But I took this Dean device patent to him, and we studied it. And he showed me a general rule to tell any device like this, you can break it up into two parts. There's the moving part, the rotor, the gyro. That's called the active mass. All the rest of it is called the passive mass. And you can break this up into two components, the active and the passive. And the active mass moves round and round. The passive mass is at the center of gravity or center of mass of the chassis is dead center here. And so this really has only two components. and Dr. Feynman said, move the thing 45 degrees and plot the center of mass of the active and the passive. Move it another 45 and repeat it. Do it every 45 until you get a full circle around. And at each of those points, you plot the center of mass of the combined active and passive mass. And when you do that, it didn't move. And it cannot move without the application of an external force. And this first device that does not require an external force. Actually, it does require an external force. The external force is gravity. Gravity moves straight down. That's what causes the precession. But it converts a downward force to horizontal motion. And it's so obvious, it's so simple that some of the most simplest things are ones you overlook. And I finally figured that part out. One thing about this, it precesses 180 degrees and uses traction 180 degrees. Precession 180, but it goes in uniform circular motion. That's very important. There's no jerking or anything like that. The active mass goes in uniform circular motion on the chassis. But now the chassis is moving under it as a reaction to the motion of the mass, of the active mass. A few months ago, Dr. Tom Vallone, he used to come to the INE meetings, and he publishes a lot of books, and he has he's headed the Institute of Research Institute, and he has a monthly newsletter, and he stated that finally inertial propulsion is here, and he pointed out that some satellites have inertial propulsion, and it's based on the Dean drive. And I looked at that and said, wow. Well, I worked, and it said that Boeing has had inertial propulsion for over 10 years, and the patent's expired, so anyone can build it now. And that was all wrong. That was reported to him by a journalist who, the the journalist thought he knew what he was doing, or either he altered the facts. But Boeing actually has, it's called electric propulsion, and it uses an ion engine. And it uses a xenon. Xenon has the highest specific impulse of any propellant so far. And, like the space shuttle uses 1 million pounds of liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen, and puts it together, and it uses propellant, something like 5,000 pounds per second. It spits it out. That lifts the space shuttle up. And that, to me, that's a brute force way of propelling something. It's like you have 7 astronauts sitting up there on top of a bomb. If something goes wrong, you all know the rest of the story. And so that's a brute force way. And inertial propulsion does not use a propellant. It uses energy. For example, you have to turn the rotor. So it uses energy, no propellant. And the energy, if you have a solar cell, it's not going to run out of sunlight, not in this solar system. If you're going from planet to planet or something, you still have sunlight. Unless you get out toward Pluto, then the sunlight is very dim. I want to mention that I have 2 patents. There's copies of them out on the table. The first patent, does it still work? Yes. The first patent has an orange cover on it. There's a few copies out there. The second, and the orange copy is for horizontal motion. Yes. I'll take this, unbutton it. Okay. Great, thank you. The second patent has a blue cover, and it's for vertical motion. And the first one requires gravity. The second one, gravity would kill it. It's not designed for use in a gravitational field like on a planet. And it's designed to work out in orbit where there's no gravitational field. Actually, there is a gravitational field out there, but it's canceled by the centrifugal force. It goes round and round the planet, and the centrifugal force is countered by gravity, so it's neutral. And so the vertical motion device, which I call VMT, can be tested only in the space station. And so this could be one of the reasons, it could be the most important reason to keep the space station running, because at first they talked about retiring it in 2015, and now they're going to go to 2020, and that's such a expensive and beautiful machine that imagine deorbiting that and burning it up over the ocean. That would be totally wrong. So, and here's an inertial propulsion device that needs to be tested. Actually, it needs to be built. This is simple to be built, but I'll say more about that. The vertical motion one, I'll just give you a glimpse of it. It can be complex, and it needs to be built by spend $100,000 and build a precision one in a laboratory where they have machines, and they can build one to a tolerance of a 10,000th of an inch. Yes. Thank you. That's an example. It looks complicated and looks like it might tip over, but it can't tip over. Why can't it tip over? Because there's no gravitational field, you know. If I built a tall thing here and I bumped it, it could flop over and smash. But that's out in orbit. There's no, now you probably wouldn't build one like that, but I analyzed dozens of configurations in this patent. And I'd encourage you that are interested in it, go pick up a copy of the blue or the orange or both, and thank you. And there's actually a tutorial in it. If you are seriously interested in studying the principles of inertial propulsion, there's a tutorial in it. You can become a student of it and learn it. Yeah, there's two examples, figure something or other and something else. My vision's a little blurry. Maybe the image is blurry also. I'm going to mention some applications. You know, I was so interested in gravity at the age of 8 that in my father's basement I started experimenting. You know, usually you build a wheel with weights on the spokes and you try to get it going around. Well, that cannot work, and of course as a 8-year-old I realized that, and I kept doing things. In fact, I became interested in measuring the speed of gravitational interaction. And in my first physics class in college, after the class was over, I walked up to the professor and I asked him, Professor, what would happen if you way in outer space where there's no bodies around for a light year, put a ping pong ball out there, and then 186,000 miles away, that's how far light travels in 1 second, 186,000, create a planet instantly, like if you were God. How long is it going to take for the gravitational field from that newly created planet to reach out and grab a hold of that ping pong ball and start pulling it toward it? And you know what his answer was? He looked at me and said, "Are you crazy?" Okay, you think that discouraged me? Well, that just fired me up and made me think. Anyhow, he was a rather simple-minded professor. He was good at what he taught, but his mind couldn't go any further than what he was taught. And later on, I wrote an article called Gravity, A New Means of Communication, and it was published in the North Dakota State Engineer when I was a junior at the North Dakota State University. And it was titled Gravity, A New Means of Communication, ? And the whole theory of that was, if gravity is instantaneous, it would be a very, very good thing for us to learn to use it so we could communicate from one planet to another.
Keep talking.
Is it not too loud?
No.
Okay.
Just reposition.
Thank you.
Actually, it's not loud enough.
Okay, not loud enough. Okay. Just raise it up then.
There we go. Turn face me for a moment.
That ought to do it.
Okay.
Okay, see, if gravity is instantaneous, we should learn to use it. And actually, this is the first way to control gravity that I know of. And I'm going to give some examples of the applications of gravity, and these are obvious. First off, a waterfall. Gravity pulls the water down and generates electricity. That's obvious. Another one is a pendulum. You can tell time with the pendulum. Another is the Foucault pendulum. That's a weird one where it's sitting still, but the earth turns under it, and it's calibrated in hours. So if you sit and watch it for a whole hour, you'll see it change from one time to another. Gravity is used to create vortices. You've heard a lot about vortex, as in tornado, or even flushing a toilet, or like up in Hawaii, in Kauai, there's water, and you go over a bridge and there's a culvert under there, and the water, there's a vortex going under. And that's so beautiful, I took pictures of it. Build a gravity gradiometer, a gravity sensor, holding the satellites in orbit. With their centrifugal force, they'd fly away, so gravity holds them in orbit. Another unique thing, Dr. Robert Millikan measured the charge on an electron. He put an electron in a chamber, and it was falling down, and the gravity pulled it down, and he determined what charge it took to hold it still. And so it measured the charge on an electron. And by the way, one of the team here married Dr. Millikan's granddaughter, which is interesting. Another very interesting thing is, this is theoretical. If you drilled a hole in the earth straight through and dropped something through, it'd take exactly 42 minutes to fall all the way through. It speeds up toward the center, comes back to a dead stop at the other side, and then it'd just keep oscillating. Or if you build it at any angle, if you drilled a hole from here to New York City, the earth is shaped like this. If you drilled a hole, no matter which angle you drill the hole, the time for gravity to move something through is 42 minutes. That's very interesting. Now, obviously, it'd have to be a tunnel, have to be in a vacuum because there'd be resistance. That'd change the time, but that's an interesting application of it. Just to estimate a local vertical, carpenters and builders, they use a plumb bob. Lagrangian points. If here's the Earth and the Moon, gravity pulls it this way, gravity pulls it this way, and the whole thing rotates around its center of mass, and there's a point out here where the centrifugal forces and the pulls of the Earth and the gravity are equal, and so it's stationary. And NASA has parked different satellites there just for safekeeping until they have a need for it. And then they fire it up and send it on its way to a planet or to an asteroid or to a comet. And so there's Lagrangian points. There's 5, every 2 bodies has 5 Lagrangian points. 2 of them are stable, the others are unstable. For example, on the far side of the Moon, there's an unstable point. The pull of the Moon and the pull of gravity are exactly canceled by the rotation of the 2-body system around its own center of mass. And if you're right on that point, it's there. But it's like putting a marble on the top of a curved surface. If you bump it, it rolls away. So it's an unstable point. There's 3 unstable points and 2 stable points. And those 2 stable points happen to be form a 60-degree angle with the 2 bodies, like an equilateral triangle, one on each side. So those are Lagrangian points. Gravitational potential energy, converting it to kinetic energy. I'll give you an example of that. I told some professors that I devised a gravitational starter for our truck and our tractors on the farm. He thought I was nuts. Well, we built a barn, and the earth sloped, so at the front of the barn, I personally, with the little bulldozer, built a grate up there. It was about 3 or 4 feet high. But if the battery in the truck was low and it'd go, couldn't start it, at the end of the day, before you shut it off, you back it up, put the brakes on, turn the switch off, and stop it. So in the morning when you want to go, you turn the switch on, you put it in high gear, and take the brake off, and let it start rolling down. And it develops speed, that's kinetic energy, and it starts turning the engine over and it goes prrrr, then you immediately put the clutch in so it don't slow down, and you put it out of gear or into low gear, whatever you want. But that's a way of converting gravitational potential energy to kinetic energy to do something like start an engine. This is HMT, horizontal motion by mass transfer. And there's other applications. Like a waterfall, there's 1,000 different applications of where something falls and is used by gravity uses it. But I try to list unique ones, and obviously there's others that I've missed. I have 2 patents, I said, and very interesting thing. It took me 3.5 years to get this patent, and I had to fight the patent office like you can't imagine, because they will not grant a patent on something called inertial propulsion, because they know it's impossible. All the establishment physicists say that don't even bother reading it, because the guy's a crackpot, see? And so I had to change the name of this to a device that moves an object back and forth, that horizontal motion, and if it moves more in one way than the other, it provides motion. And so I had to call it device to move an object back and forth. And for my vertical motion one, I had to call it a device to move an object up and down. And then I got them to grant the patent. And that's sad. They were in that same position with regard to cold fusion. And Dr. Tom Vallone was a patent agent for the patent department, and he was for cold fusion big time. And they fired him because he wanted to give patents on cold fusion. They fired him. And so he didn't have a job for 3 or 4 years. I mean, he didn't seek one, but so he came to all the meetings of like this, which was the Institute for New Energy back in Salt Lake City. And I know him very well. His wife, Jacqueline, is a PhD in physics also, believe it or not. And so actually he filed a lawsuit